to the chat. This is homegirl. Area about Bosa 914 was the county New York. I'm definitely in the house. I'm definitely here. And I'm not gonna be here that long. This is a video about the system and different uh in the system of life. You know, and people will use your will use your circumstances to profit off. They do it for the kids. Are they profiting off of your pain, off of your life circumstances? Shout out to the chat. This is your homegirl. Arabia Barbosa 914, what's the county New York? I'm not gonna be here that long. I just want to put that out there. People are profiting from off of your sorrow, off your pain, off your life circumstance. I'm not talking about people on YouTube. I'm talking about real life circumstances. Real life circumstances. Who is making the money? Who is making the money? Who is raking in all the real coin, not Bitcoin, the real coin? Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the Ghost Watchers. But it is what it is, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to be up here that long. I don't need to be up here that long. I don't need to be up here that long. Nobody's ever going to hit the link. Everybody know what I'm saying is the truth. And a lot of people are afraid of the truth. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Just like a lot of people was afraid of what I was given, the information for my own job. Alicia, thank you for coming in. Shout out to you. Yeah, but people profit off of your pain, your life circumstances. Whether you might be in prison, a job corps, a rehab center, on your job, in your car, at the hospital for any kind of reason, they are profiting. There are certain people in this world that's profiting off of your pain. They're profiting off of your misery. That's what they do. That's their job, to profit, to bring in money, to bring in money. I remember years ago when I went to prison years ago, people were profiting of the DNA program. DNA program meant that if you was a violent offender, you had to give up your blood. You had to do the swabs. And then you had to pay $500 because the state didn't pay it. The federal government didn't pay it. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. I remember, I remember those women that were paying. They were paying big money to get their DNA up there because a lot of certain circumstances and law enforcement, they want the cold cases to die. They want the cold cases of murder and serial murder to go away. And what better way to do it is to target a certain population of people. And that's what they do. They profit off of you in prison. Every time you go to the doctor, you go to a dentist, you go anywhere, they're profiting. You're being charged. When you go to medical, you're being charged. When you send out mail or anything, you are being charged. Or a lot of people will not tell you that. Mr. Skinny been to prison. I never heard Mr. Skinny talk about how the prison is profiting off the inmates. I never heard him say it one time, not one time. I'm the only one on this YouTube streets in this sector talking about that. I'm the only one talking about that. I'm not talking about people on YouTube getting cash apps or cash app donation or this and that. I know that happens. I know that's a reality. But they're not profiting off of my misery. They're not profiting off of my life circumstances. They're not profiting. They could never profit. How long your profit gonna last? 6 months, and the shit will die. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. But if anyone want to hit the link, they can. Because I'm thinking I'm going to drop it in a little while. Hold on. Invite. Copy. Come here. Post comment. Chat. And I don't mean no harm, but it's a reality. It's a reality for me. It's a reality for all my people. Whether it is or not, it didn't drop. It didn't, okay, there's something going on with this right here. I can't do nothing about it right now. I play with it for a little bit, but it is what it is. It is what I can try it again. I can try it again. I'm getting really tired and sick of this and stuff. But I want other people that have something to say. They can say it. You know, they can say it. They don't have to sit in a corner by themselves. They don't have to keep their feelings to themselves. There goes the link. The link is dropped. Anyone can hit the link at any time. But I have to know you. I have to know. You cannot be somebody new. You have to be from my old crew. You got to be from somewhere I'm familiar with. A shout out to the chat. And that's all I'm going to say. But thank you, Letitia, for coming in. You always come in. You know, it's certain ones that come in. Letitia come in, keep the change coming sometime. Maybe other people come in. I got a lot of ghost watchers sometime. They like to come in. But it is what the fuck it is. People are profiting. They're getting rich. They're getting rich off of your misery. When you're in prison and you have to work a job in prison, you know what will happen if you refuse to go to work, if you refuse to be a slave, because you're only getting paid what, 12 cents a day, maybe 50 cents a day in certain circumstances. With certain jobs, you're being paid maybe $1 a day, not $1 an hour, $1 a day. Shout out to the chat. So by the time that you collect your money, if your family didn't send you no money, you're gonna be in the red. That's where you're gonna be. You're gonna be in the fucking red, and everybody knows it. Look at what they doing to Kanye West. Look what they doing to him. They've been doing that to him for many, many years. I think Will D did a video about Kanye West being in the hospital on a suicide watch or whatever the case may be. You know, this ain't no joke, man. Because Kanye been talking for years and years. just like a whole lot of other people. Phyllis Hyman talked, Billie Holiday talked, Whitney Houston talked, Amy Winehouse talked, and all of them had talked or said anything. Michael Jackson, Prince, anyone that talked against the establishment were wiped out. They were wiped out. They were silenced forever. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. I'm not going to be silenced. I'm going to talk my shit. I'm going to talk it. I'm going to talk the truth. I'm going to say the truth. And that's what I'm going to live with. That's what I'm going to live with. And this is another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm going to warn these young women, these new generational women that might be in their teenage years, their 20s, their 30s. Do not think that you're going to date certain men and you're going to get away with certain stuff that you do, or you think you are safe, or you think you are protected. Shout out to the chat. Because as we see in social media or current events, look what they did. Okay, the BTK killer. He was a serial killer. He killed plenty of people. He was convicted of 10 murders a few years ago. They are connecting him with other victims, other murder victims. And you know what's going to happen? He go to the correct state in a certain situation where he created. He created all that. He was a husband, a father, a church leader. He did service community work. He had a regular job. He was taking care of his family, but the man got taken over. Got taken over by his own dark desires. There's a lot of men in this world that have dark desires for females. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. I remember when my father told me about his father, my grandfather, Grandpa Smith. Grandpa Smith went to North Carolina in 1960. 1960. And when he got off the platform that he arrived at with my father and told my father was 14 years old, a woman called out to my grandfather, called him by his name, waved at him, was smiling at him. My grandfather said, "Where is my fucking money, bitch?" And he moved up close where she was at. And she said she didn't have it. He stabbed her to death on that platform. The woman died. Shout out to the chat. The woman died. And my grandfather told my father if he told anybody what had happened, he was going to kill my father. Let me tell you something. My father was 14 years old at the time. My father did not tell that story until my father was 57 years old. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the motherfucking chat. That's a cold case. So that means if I ever get locked up again and they ever had to take my DNA for anything, I would be connected with cold cases and I didn't commit the crime. Okay, they would know I didn't do it. Or I didn't do it. But my grandfather did. And my grandfather died years ago. My grandfather died before I was even fucking born. Shout out to the chat. And that is a fucking reality. It's a fucking nightmare when you wake up in the morning and you find out one of your relatives is someone of interest. And in the black community, I'm sorry to say, in the black community, we got a lot of people that are in people of interest. Got a lot of serial killers within our midst. They are unknown. Let me tell you something. I come from New York, 914 Washington County, New York. I'm living in South Carolina. You know how many women in this area have been murdered, have been found in certain places in Charleston, South Carolina, other places of South Carolina. They have not found the people that killed those women. They're not interested in finding them. The BTK killer, he knew that. Ted Bundy, he knew that. Arlene Warners knew that. Most of the serial killers that are on the books knew that the police were not looking for them. Shout out to the chat. And it's a fucking reality. People are profiting off of your pain, off of your family's circumstances. Your family might be a generational curse. You don't know. You don't know. You're going to ask the questions. Your questions will never be answered. Some questions I have will never be answered because most of those people have already passed on. They have already passed on. When my grandmother found out that my grandfather was a killer, but he served in World War II, so he killed people during the war. Shout out to the chat. But it is what it is. 914 Washington County, New York. It is what the fuck it is. And I'm shouting all the women on YouTube that doing their videos, that talking their content. They're not gossiping about people. If they do gossip, they gossip for a little bit and then they move on to a real, true subject. Shout out to the chat. But there's a lot of you on this app will not touch certain subjects that I touch on. You can't do it. Because when I was in prison, they never put me in a room with somebody that wrote checks. They never put me in a room with somebody that robbed a store or did armed robbery or strong arm robbery. They never put me with somebody that had the same crime I had. They put me in rooms with people, with women that was convicted of manslaughter or murder. Shout out to the chat. And that's a reality. And let me tell you something about those women. Those women said they never got peace. There was never no peace with them. Whether they go to sleep, whether they work in the kitchen, whether they was on the yard, whether they was wherever they were working, they never got no peace. They ate certain foods. It tasted funny to them. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the motherfucking chat. And I'm going to tell you something. Every time their anniversary of their crime came up, those women usually requested to go to lockup for 30 days. They had to sign uh, protective custody papers. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all don't know nothing about that. You will never know anything about it. Shout out to the chat. Khadija, thank you. Yeah, but they will never know what really happens when you go to fucking prison. If you are convicted of murder. I don't care if it was manslaughter. I don't care if it was a vehicular homicide. I don't care if it was an accidental death. Those women never had any peace. And their relationships in prison were always toxic, always filled up with some kind of violence going on. You will never know what I experienced. They used to put me in the rooms with the women that had murder charges on them. I didn't give a fuck about that. I listened to their story. I sympathized with them. And I'm gonna tell you something about all those women. Let me tell you something. If I was in the room with you and you was there for murder, you took care of me. I ain't take care of you. My family wasn't sending me no fucking money like that. Shout out to the chat. And that's reality. That's a reality check. I get a reality check every time I walk out of this goddamn door. Reality check. I went to work early this morning. We went to the recycling center. And let me tell you something, man. When I get tired, I get tired. I sit down. 12 o'clock came. Guess what my black ass was doing? Sitting there. Because I used my penitentiary experience how to deal with these fucking jobs. If somebody's mistreating me, somebody ain't treating me right, I do what I always did. And I learned that in my 20s. I learned that when I was a young girl growing up in New York. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the fucking foster care system. It is what it is. Letitia, from what they expressed to me, they was never at peace. The women, the women I was in the room with, if they was convicted of any kind of manslaughter charges, it could be vehicular homicide, it could be the accidental killing. Those women were never at peace, not inside themselves. When we eat ketchup, we don't taste blood. When we eat certain foods, we don't taste certain tastes or smell certain smells that they smell. And they were very, very sensitive to certain things. Shout out to the chat. But thank you for coming in. I'm not going to be up here that long. Not going to be up here that long. Deja, you're right. PSD. Thank you, Khadija, for coming. I hope you're feeling better, my baby. I'm talking about the women that intentionally, you know what? Those that intentionally murdered their victims, they never got any peace. They were always revisited with their crime. It could be something very simple. Those women used to go off. They used to spark off. Those women used to go to lock up all the time. And some of those women grew old, especially the old school women. They grew old and they were always angry about something. And most of them died right there in prison. Shout out to the chat. But thank you for saying that. Hold on. Hold on, Letitia. Even if they killed someone who was abused, yes, yes, Letitia, they never got no rest. They never got no peace. Never. Even if the person they killed, one of the women I was in the room with, she killed her abuser. She was never at rest. I remember some nights, Letitia, because I used to hustle my artwork in prison. I used to do envelopes and, little things for different women and get paid for it. And if I stayed up, she stayed up. And we talked. We talked about life. We talked about the Bible. We talked about the artwork I was doing. Yo, shout out to the chat. And I'm gonna tell you something. That woman took care of me while I was in that room with her. We never had sex or nothing like that. She just looked out for me. A lot of women that commit murder, they are very repentant, but they never have no peace. They can't eat certain foods like the way me and you can. Okay, I got hamburgers in the house right now, Letitia. I don't have no ketchup in the house. But let's say I would have had some ketchup in the house. With those women, you cannot have no ketchup. You cannot have no spaghetti sauce. You can't have no spaghetti paste. Not in none of their food. They will not eat it. It got to be plain. It got to be seasoned, but it has to be plain. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the motherfuckers. Oh Lord, we got a good crowd here tonight. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. But yeah, people are profiting off the inmate pain. They're profiting off their work. And if you refuse to work, you go to fucking lockup. You go there. I don't know how many times me and some of the other women used to protest the work we were doing. And everybody said, we gonna protest. But as soon as the CEOs come out there, them bitches to sit down, and I'm the only bitch. I ain't gonna do this. I ain't gonna do it. I'm the only one they used to always take down. Shout out to chat. I was much younger then. I was in my 20s. And I was beautiful. I was wonderful. I was awesome. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Yep. hmm Yep. And Khadijah, that's the way it happened. That's the way it happened. If they had a shutdown work strike, it'd be over 20 women doing a shutdown work strike. And as soon as the CEOs would get out there, all of a sudden they start picking up their little, instruments or materials to do the work. I'm the only bitch out there, only asshole. I ain't gonna do shit, And when I used to get locked up on lockup, when they put me on the gun, yo man, I was like, I don't want none of y'all to talk to me no more. Don't talk to me no more. You know what, Letitia? Some of those women were not psychopaths. They were misguided souls. They was dating someone maybe they should not have dated. But one of the women they had put me in a room with, and I remember her very well. I remember her every time a time of the month, and I remember her very well. And me and her, we was good friends. We was close. But when I left from prison, she told everybody, "Oh, Arabia is coming back to the penitentiary." They expected me to come back within 1 year, 2 year. I didn't come back at all. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. But I'm going to end this video. But I thank everyone for coming in. I thank everyone for posting their comments. And like and share the video. And we will go on from there. We will go on from there. I'm gonna have to do something about my StreamYard because it be acting funny sometimes. But shout out to the chat, shout out to the chat, shout out to my subscribers, shout out to my support team, shout out to the women that listen to me, shout out to the men that listen to me, and those that are not here will catch the playback. Shout out to all of you. Have an awesome night. Have an awesome weekend. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. And I want all the women in this sector and every sector to know that there are men out there that are looking to abuse them and mistreat them. And they got to know the signs. You got to know them. Because how did BTK killer survive all them years? Ted Bundy survived all them years. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. We out of here, y'all. Thank y'all for coming over. I appreciate it. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming over. I love you. Shout out to the chat. Peace.